The main takeaway would be that it's good to talk. That dialogue is really, really important. This is what the IEF was set up for. I've actually had the privilege of working for the IEA as an analyst. I have actually covered OPEC meetings as a journalist, so I can see both sides. And I think it just makes it's so important, because at the end of the day, we're talking about energy security. We're not talking about a particular energy source. We're not just talking about oil and gas and coal and renewables. We're talking about energy as a whole. And we need to understand what is needed in order to supply this energy to the world, because as people were saying today, population is growing, you have more urbanization, you still have millions, hundreds of millions of people who have no access to energy. So unless we have clear policies that will then allow investments to go into these energy sources that we need, we're not going to make it. We are still going to leave people behind. So I think you need to have this discussion, you need to have public and private investments together but it's all policy driven at the end of the day. Policymakers have to listen to what we are saying at forums like this, so that they can then adapt policies that will allow these investments to be realized. Because without that, it doesn't matter. I mean, we see what's happening in the United States now. Policies are changing, so people don't really know what is happening, and it's going to either delay certain investments, it's going to affect not just the United States but globally. So I think to find people from various countries, from India, from China, from the United States, from Saudi Arabia, speaking at a forum like this, I think it's really, really important. Secretary General of OPEC put it really well. He said realism. We need realism. You know, people setting targets today are not going to be around in 2050. There's not going to be accountability. I think we have to be realistic about the targets. We have to set targets that are achievable, and just be aware of data is important. You have to rely on the data. It's how you interpret that data, which basically determines which way investments go. But I think there's a bit of I think some of the targets are unrealistic, they're not going to be achieved, and that's why it's really, really important to look at these various outlooks which people were talking about today, from various major energy companies, from the IEA, from OPEC, from IRENA, all these various organizations, and then, you can take your pick and say, okay, this looks realistic to me, but it has to be out there, it has to be available. So I think it's, at the end of the day, it's data-driven. Dialogue is important. Policymakers have to set the agenda and allow these investments. But I think that's really, I think the main takeaway is realism. We have to be realistic about the transition, what we can achieve. When you look at the numbers, we talk about oil and gas and coal making up, 80% of the global energy mix. You put it in numbers and you're talking about 270 million barrels of oil equivalent a day. That is the challenge of decarbonization. So we're going to need all technologies, we're going to need public, private sector investment, we're going to need public awareness. People have to realize what it is they need to do. So energy efficiency is important. So, it's a combination. It's not a one, what the policies that might suit one certain country are not going to suit another. You can't apply the same policies in a European country, in a wealthy country. In Africa, we heard that energy access is not just about one light bulb or being able to charge a phone twice a day. It's more than that. It's being able to power hospitals and schools and industry, to lift people out of poverty. Well, I think we've seen it in the UAE with the metro. That was a public-private enterprise. It's eased congestion a little bit, so that's one way of reducing emissions. It has also affected certain parts of the city by making them more accessible, affected real estate values. In Riyadh itself, we have, the metro, the brand new metro, which is huge, ultra modern. Again, we see a lot of congestion in Riyadh. You've got the airport in Jeddah. That was another private-public collaboration, which is very successful. It's a very modern airport. We've seen it in Neom. So I think it's that kind of, the private-public sector, because transportation is responsible for so much of the emissions that we see today, particularly road transport. Electric vehicles, yes, but you need to do a lot more. So, high-speed rail, we're seeing in Saudi Arabia, it's coming in Dubai, linking Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So I think it also links communities together, in addition to reducing emissions.